Richard Kingsmill with you on 2016 on Triple J. We're going to get to the Last Shadow Puppets right now. So Alex Turner and Miles Kane have got back together again in the studio to work on the second Last Shadow Puppets album. We're going to get to the interview in a moment. I'll tell you more about the setup. Behind every interview, there's always a good story, or there's always a story of, stuff that happens before the tape starts rolling or the microphones go on. With this with this interview, this is what I had to sit through for 20 minutes. Now, usually the operator comes on and says, oh, look, we're just having trouble finding the band. I'll get back to you in a moment. But not this operator. She kept me on the phone for 20 minutes listening to this. I was, needless to say, nearly asleep by the time I finally got connected. You'll get more of the vibe of the interview in just a moment, but let's hear some of the brand new music from the Last Shadow Puppets. The album came out on Friday. This track is a killer. It's called Miracle Aligner.
Tell them what you want and baby you can find you.
Okay, on Triple J. So that's track 2 off the record. That's the Last Shadow Puppets with Miracle Aligner. So the album is called Everything You've Come to Expect. It came out on Friday. So this is the second album for the Last Shadow Puppets, who are Alex Turner from the Arctic Monkeys and Miles Kane. This pair first met when the Arctic Monkeys were actually on tour back in 2007. One of Miles Kane's previous bands was the support act. They got along, and lo and behold, just a year later, they were making music together in the studio.
Standing next to me, standing next to me, and your love is standing next to me, standing next to me, standing next to me. Standing next to me.
So that was one of the singles from the 2008 album, The Age of the Understatement. Once again, James Ford, who actually produced that first record, is back helping them out on the making of their second release, as is Owen Pallett, who's done the wonderful string arrangements again for the Last Shadow Puppets. They recorded this new album in Rick Rubin's Malibu studios, and one of the big songs from it so far has been this. And this track being Aviation. We're going to hear more of the new music from the Last Shadow Puppets in just a moment, but when I finally got connected after sitting through 20 minutes of music that the operator inflicted on me, I finally got connected to the Last Shadow Puppets. They'd just come off stage after doing a performance in England. I was assured that they wouldn't be on mobile phones. We insisted they be on a landline because it was for radio and that the quality would be better. Well, not only were they on mobile phones, they were on a mobile phone. They were sharing a mobile phone. They had it on speaker. That was the way the interview was going to be. So please, bear with the quality. It's not exceptional. I think you'll be able to understand most of what they say. They are funny characters. So here is a section of the interview anyway that I had with them the other day. So this is Miles Kane and Alex Turner from the Last Shadow Puppets. I started off by asking him, did they always have intentions of making a second album together?
Yeah, we mentioned it intermittently throughout the years. There was always an idea that we'd like to do it one day. Yeah. Whenever we were asked about it.
We got asked about it quite a lot, We'd always get asked about it. So
we'd always respond by saying one day it'd be nice to ride again.
And so with this second record, sort of 8 years apart from the first, what were the major differences, do you think, making this record? Did it feel like a very different experience?
Yeah. I don't know. I think with the first record, it was done one summer in France with a couple of weeks that we both had off from our band, and it was just an experiment. There was no expectations with it. We didn't know if it was going to be released. Certainly never imagined that we'd take it on tour, etc. And I think for that reason we were afforded freedom with it to, and I think you can hear that, like that we were able to go places we hadn't been before, and this time with the new record we tried to approach it with as much of that attitude as we did as we could do. The first time. I mean, obviously there's some differences now, like
because it probably was a bit more pressure, because people were expecting it, and we got asked about it every day for 8 years, but we tried to keep that same mentality of it just being us two writing songs and recording them, and not thinking of the circle around Saturn.
And so was that easier said than done?
I'd say it's probably more relaxed the first time, to be honest, Richard. Yeah, because without the expectations and the innocence of youth, being like a couple of 21-year-old young bucks back then, we just we didn't ask a lot of questions. Whereas maybe now we ask a couple more, but still tried to keep them to limited.
Yeah, sure. The sound of the two records is very different, isn't it? Did you listen back much to that first record, or have you been listening back to that first record to kind of compare it to this second one now?
What we have been doing, Richard, is doing a couple of shows. We just finished a show tonight, actually, and that has meant that we have had to re-enter the sphere that we were in for the first record. Yeah. Like, we've been playing a few old tunes, so then we've had to look at them again, for that reason, and it's quite strange. It feels like there has certainly been a passage of time, but it's enjoyable.
It's an enjoyable,
It's
like looking through an old photo album or something.
It's a bit like that, or a diary.
Reading all that bad not bad poetry, but all those diary entries from years ago. What was I thinking when I wrote that?
Exactly, you got it. You hit the nail on the head.
What about the influences? I mean, you essentially musically, you're coming from a very similar territory. Were there any majorly new influences, do you think, this time round?
I think the first album's a lot more about its influences than this one is. There was a very clear criteria with that first record. It was about chasing after this sound of a few very specific records, like a list of probably 5 records at which Scott Walker was at the top of. This time, I think it was, even though, there are some moments where we reference things when we were talking about tones or the string arrangements, but the influences weren't as, there wasn't as much discussion about that. There was a time when thinking about doing a second Shadow Puppets record, we were almost searching for a new list of 5 records, a new kind of influence, if you like, and we just realised that without the innocence or naivety that we had before, it wasn't necessarily going to work that way.
All right, on Triple J. Yeah, apologies for the quality. As I said, they were sharing a mobile phone and speaking into the speaker setup to do the interview this week, but that was Alex Turner and Miles Kane from the last Shadow Puppets. We're going to hear more of the music in just a moment. The section of the interview which I thought, well, if there's any part of the interview which showed why they worked together musically, listen to how they harmonise when they answer this question together.
We'd always respond by saying one day it'd be nice to ride again.
It sounded like the same person doubled up. Have a listen. Just one more time. I love this section.
We'd always respond by saying one day it'd be nice to ride again.
Harmonising their answers. So there it is, Alex and Miles from the last Shadow Puppets. This one's a goodie, off the record too. This one's called Dracula Teeth. Once again, that one is called Dracula Teeth from the Last Shadow Puppets. The album, Everything You've Come to Expect, came out on Friday. It's going to be our feature album on Triple J starting tomorrow morning. You'll hear plenty more of the new material from Alex Turner and Miles Kane this week on Triple J.